Hey everybody, all right, I'm going to walk you through assignment number 2. There are lots of steps, but I think they're all relatively simple once you put them together. All right, starting point for this assignment is the assignment page itself. I'm going to recommend that you read the assigned reading for February 28th, which is just a part of my book that explains XML tagging, but if you come to lecture today, you will have seen a summary of that too. It can still be useful to get yourself a reminder. All right, I'm going to walk you through all these 8 steps to do the kind of technical portion of the assignment. The first one is to use Chrome. You'll see that I'm using Chrome here on a Mac. It also works on other operating systems like Windows. It just makes things easier, so please use Chrome. And when we do our final assignment with Twine, you're going to want to use Chrome as well, so good to get used to it. So the first thing that you're going to do for this assignment is claim one of the 16 texts that I've assigned. Okay, so that's all happening just on a Google Sheet. So you click on this link, it takes you to this Google Doc, Google Sheet. You'll see that there are 10 spaces for annotators for each text. So you would just, if there's an empty square, put your name into the text that you want. So these 4 are short stories. So if you pick those, you're going to do the full story. These ones are slightly longer stories. So this one, you would pick either the first or second half of Hurston, first or second half of Toni Morrison. The Forster and the Le Guin are quite long, so you're just going to do a quarter of them. Generally speaking, the shorter texts are the trickier ones, like Chekhov, tricky because of the Russian names, Hemingway, tricky because he's Hemingway, Mansfield, tricky because she's Mansfield, Poe, maybe not quite as tricky as the other 3 of the super short ones. In terms of quote attribution, the Forster and the Le Guin are relatively straightforward, although each presents its own little challenges. So you have to read more, because I want you to read the whole story, even though you're just going to do part of it. But these are probably a bit simpler. Hurston presents its own challenges, but is sort of an in-between. So it does work out that the shorter ones are kind of harder in terms of the task, and the longer ones are a bit easier. So you're compensated by more reading, easier tagging, or less reading, slightly more difficult tagging. All right, so I'm going to, for this example, if I was going to pick, I'm obsessed with E.M. Forster's The Machine Stops, so I would probably pick part 4. So what you do to claim it is just write your name in, like that, and then that would be claimed. It is possible to come in and delete someone else's name, but also because Google Sheets records all revisions, if someone were to complain that their name is suddenly missing, it'd be pretty easy to see who had deleted it. So don't do it. So I'm not going to claim that spot though. So for my example, I'm going to do a different one. So for now, they're all totally open. I bet by the end of today, they will all be claimed, or at least most of them. Okay, so that's step 2. Let's say I've claimed mine. All right, so on this site, under Files, Quote Attribution Materials, there's going to be an edition of your story. So I'm going to open this up in a separate tab. So under Files, Quote Attribution Materials, PDF editions, this is just a pretty reading edition of all the stories. And for the multi-part ones, it very clearly says where the parts separate. So for the Machine Stops, I'm doing part 1. Okay, I can see that it starts here. So you don't do anything with these except read them. I just made these so that you can have a pretty edition to read the story, get familiar with it. You'll see that as this continues and scrolls down eventually, okay, I try to be really explicit here. This is the end of part 1, and then part 2 starts down here. So anyway, so if you're doing part 2, that's where your part will begin. So just read the story. Whichever one you picked is the first thing that you need to do. They're all there. Okay. Now it says, so read the story. Step 4. Find the XML file and find the text character list. So the XML file will be the Gutenberg algorithm's attempt at doing quote attribution for your story. And it's, in many cases, it's really not very good, partly because Gutenberg is much better at doing novels, and short stories are short, and they're much harder to work on for these kinds of algorithms. But this is the attempt. So for this assignment, you're not just doing it from scratch, you're correcting an existing algorithm's attempt. So the way that you would download it, say you're doing Forster Part 4, you would find your particular part, and you would click over here and select Download. If you're just doing like one that only has one part, you know the whole thing is there, you download it. And these part 1, part 2s, you should see pretty clearly which one to download. Now for this, I'm doing an example that won't be available for you to do, the out-of-body chapter from Jennifer Egan. So I'm going to click Download. And it's going to, in Chrome, you'll see it downloading there at the bottom. Now, the other thing you need to do is get your character list. So for every story, there's a character list. Note that for, say, the ones with multiple parts, like part 1, 2, 3, 4 for Forster, there's just one character list that corresponds to the entire story. So download that character list. If you're doing Forster, any part, you download the full character list. Same for Hurston, same for Le Guin, same for Morrison, the other multi-part ones. I'm going to download this character list for Jennifer Egan. Download, done. Okay, so I've got those both downloaded. They're both showed up in my downloads folder, but I'm going to make a new folder on my desktop. Let's say, and I'm going to drag both of these in there just so that I have them in a place that I can remember. Okay, so now if I click in there, there they are, one XML file and one text file. All right, back to the instructions. So we've now done step 4. Read the annotation guidelines I'm recommending. So if you were to click there, you get a download of them. You can also just go to quote attribution materials under files, and the annotation guidelines are here. So a lot of this is going to be covered in the PDF in the presentation that I do today on the 28th. But these are like the official rules. This is like if scientists want to review the procedure that I used to create these texts, this is the official rules. So you really need to read through these because every question you have should be answered here if I've done my job correctly. You probably also want to revisit the lecture slides, so you'll also find the lecture slides, which I will open up. For today might be helpful. So there they are. 101 slides, my friends. Big day. Okay, so step 6, open Sublime Text or the text editor of your choice. We used Sublime Text on the last one. I'm going to recommend that you use it for this assignment too. To open both the XML and the TXT files that you downloaded in step 4. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Open. I'm going to go where I saved them, which was on the desktop here. I'm going to open the XML file, and I'm going to open the TXT character list. So that's what they'd look like, and this is how I'd recommend you have it set up. You've got one in one tab, one in the other. You're going back and forth between the two. So the character list, I think this one's actually not bad. Some of you will find you'll have duplicate characters. There's going to be errors. Female characters will be marked as male. Things that aren't characters will be marked as characters. I noticed for Forster this is particularly bad. So let's say that there was like another one called like Robbie. This is the kind of thing that happens, like where it sees nicknames and it thinks they're different people. You would just eliminate any duplicates. Like, okay, Robbie, it's just Rob, so you would just take that and delete it, and that's all there is. If you needed to add a new character, let's say there's a character named like Steve in this story, you would write Steve. We're going to just use like first names, it's the easiest way, with capital letters, because that's how the system does it. Then you'd hit the tab key on your keyboard, you know, that's the key on the left hand side of your keyboard above caps lock, and say that Steve is man, or is indicated by like male pronouns, he, in the story. That's all you would have to do, and you'd be done. Okay, but Steve isn't really in the story. Okay, so the way that the actual tagging works, I'm going to show you this example in class and on the slides about these particular lines, because I found a lot of mistakes here. It does a horrible job. The algorithm does a genuinely like terrible job on this section because it's in the second person, which the algorithm's just not trained to deal with. So hopefully we'll see pretty much all the kinds of errors So like here, for instance, the tagging, it's like, it's fine. Technically it works, but it's incorrect. Like this quotation starts here, okay, so the opening of the sed tag is in the right place, but it ends here, and there's no end to the sed tag. The end of the sed tag is all the way down here. So I'm just going to take that, I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to move it where it ought to be. Okay, so now the end tag for that sed is in the right place. Notice how like Sublime Text is pretty smart. It colors things so that we can kind of understand how the tagging works. It also like underlines matching start and end tags, so it gets that we've got this set up right. Okay, so that rest of the paragraph is now fine. Don't worry about the spaces that Gutenberg inserts between characters. This is just a standard process called tokenization. Okay, next paragraph, Lizzie turns to you flushed. Are you referring to my mother? The sed tags are at least in the right spot. Now here, I forgot to say, the algorithm has the wrong person indicated. The U here is Rob, it's not Sasha. So we want to make it Rob. What's the official? Okay, Rob is referred to in the character list as capital R-O-B, Rob. These need to match. Just like Sasha matches the spelling of Sasha here, it's wrong. So we're going to go in and write it in exactly as it shows. Here, Rob, perfect, matches. So that's Rob. Lizzie turns you flushed, said who equals Lizzie. Are you referring to my mother? That's fine. The sed tag is in the right place and it is Lizzie. Now here it's like said who equals Lizzie, not me. Okay, the start tag is in the right place, the end tag is in the right place, but the person is wrong. So we'll change that again, that's Rob. I don't know why it suggests all these other names. Just type in what you need and don't let it suggest something else to you. Okay, this one, you can't talk to me that way in my apartment, Rob, she says. So here is another case where the end sed tag is in the wrong place. I'm going to cut it, and that's where it needs to be, right after the quotation mark. And I'm going to paste it in. All right, so that's good. Notice, like, if I had just gone in here and typed, and let me just undo that and show you like a mistake. You could come in here and say, okay, all you have to do is do a forward, like do the pointy bracket and a forward slash, and Sublime Text knows that that's the tag that needs to be ended there because there's an open one here, so it'll auto-complete it for you. But here you're left with an error because you've got something ends here, but you didn't delete the original end tag that was inserted by the algorithm, so you've got like a dangling end tag. It's a mistake. So I'm going to remove that. So this looks good. Okay, I'm not going to do the whole story, but that shows you, like, that's a lot of changes. If you had a story that was as badly tagged as Out of Body, you'd probably be sitting there for a good hour fixing everything. Hopefully yours isn't quite that bad and it doesn't take as long. There's one other example of something. So here's I'm just randomly picking another passage to show you there are some spots where it's not like there will be an incorrect sed tag, there will just be no sed tag at all. So here it's like, I'm sorry, you tell Lizzie. Just because I'm referring to it, I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to write in sed in the right spot. So this one has nothing, so I'm going to do a whole new one. So pointy bracket, sed, who equals, and this is Lizzie. Okay, see how the colors change throughout. You want it to then look normal when you're done, and this one ends there. So that's it. Which one is really you? The one saying this is a key line in this whole story. This is just an error. There should be no sed tag there. So I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to remove the end sed tag. Okay, so I've made a lot of changes to the file. I would actually do more if I was doing this for real, but I think that pretty much shows all the possible types of changes that you could make. The character list is good. Okay, so I'm done. Let's say. So once you've completed your tagging, save both files by adding an underscore followed by your first and last names to the existing file name. So this is an important step that you will lose points for if you don't do it. It's really important for me and for us because for like bookkeeping reasons, we need to know who made what file when we collect all of these at the end of the experiment. So save as. So I'm just going to do exactly what it says in the instructions. You leave it exactly as it is, then do an underscore, then write your name all together, no spaces, like that. Okay. And do the same thing here, save as exactly, leave it exactly like it is, underscore, put your name. All right, so that step is done now too. Step 7. So all that's left is step 8. This is just like a little checking stage to make sure you haven't made any big errors. It won't catch small errors, it'll catch the big ones, the like structural errors. So it's just a XML validator that I found online. So I would pick the one that I actually made, the one with my last name on it, and select open, and it's going to load the file. Oh, okay, it's going to make a mistake. Good to know. Let's instead go here and select everything. Selection, where's select all? Right, I always use keystrokes. Okay, I'm going to select all, then I'm going to copy, and I'm going to go into the validator, paste, and click validate, and you'll see that it says valid XML. That's what you want. There are no mistakes. If I had left one of those original mistakes in there, you don't see the word bigot, huh? Where is it? It's like around here somewhere. Anyway, it doesn't particularly matter. Okay, but let's say like I had accidentally left that extra close sed tag. If I tried to validate it, it would say that it contains an error, opening and tagging mismatch. See, so it's very smart. It'll notice like those kinds of mistakes. And you would just, fix it and click validate again, and it would tell you what's actually going on. If I had done stuff like forgotten, even like a quotation mark here, it would find that error. It also kind of reformats everything in a way that I find kind of annoying. So instead of like correcting errors in here, if it finds an error, I would just personally go back into this file and correct the error, and then repeat the select all, copy, put it back in, and click validate until you've got your valid XML. All right, so that's all done. So we've done all the steps now. Now you have to do a little assignment. I won't talk about this much here, except to reinforce the idea that you just do one of these ones at the end. Write about 100 words per question, and this is not an essay. Treat these like short answer questions on an exam. You don't need to be fancy here. You just need to answer the questions. Okay, so I am going to just show you how to submit it when you're done. This is going to make the whole thing available to you all early, which is not what I want, so hopefully this won't take long. Okay, it'll look like this. You will see assignment number 2. You will be done all these steps. You will click submit assignment. You will choose the 2 files, the ones with your names on them, please. So that one is the XML where I made all my changes. You would choose the text file, the one with your name on it. You made your changes. You would also pick the Word file or the PDF with your answers, and then you would click submit assignment. And then you would be all done. So that's it. Okay. I hope you enjoy this process. It will probably take you a little longer than it took me to show you how to do it, because you actually have to do a lot of tagging. If you have any questions at all, please let me know. I need for this to be easy for you, right? Like, I get nothing out of this assignment if you mess up your coding or have a hard time with it. So if you have any questions about this, please tell me. Bye for now.